Nvidia, which is now projecting its AI-fueled sales surge will extend into 2028, powered by strong demand for AI hardware. The world's most valuable company expects third quarter revenue to reach $108 billion. That is higher than Wall Street estimates of $104 billion. For the next fiscal year, it's expecting sales growth of 70%. Now, that builds from the $96 billion in the sales that it booked in the quarter ending July. It's also more than double from year-ago levels and beats market expectations. Earnings per share also surpassed estimates. For a closer look, we are joined by Bob O'Donnell, President and Chief Analyst at TECHnalysis Research. Bob, thank you for joining us today. So Nvidia, as you know, is a barometer of AI trade, right? And the forecasts that we're seeing, the quarterly revenue coming in above Wall Street estimates for this current quarter, 108 billion, and then it's also expecting 70% sales growth in next financial year. But the kind of muted response there from investors. Why do you think so? And to you, are hyperscalers still accelerating?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And yeah, look, the crazy thing about it is the actual Nvidia numbers almost don't matter anymore, as crazy as that is to say, because so much of this has been sort of predicted, not only predicted, but actually shown by the fact that they have all these contracts going into the future. And so that's why they were able to say, for the first time ever, we're going to predict our entire fiscal year, and we're going to go up by almost twice as high as Wall Street was thinking, 70% versus the street was at like 44 or 45%. So just an absolute enormous amount of growth. So, as a barometer, you say, oh, that's a great sign. Then what you start to think about are what are the other factors, right? We've got DRAM memory shortage issues. We've got supply constraints, which they talked about on their call. They could sell even more if they could get more chips and if they could get more DRAM. All of those factors come into play. Then we get into things like, is there enough power available in the power grid in various places around the world where these data centers are being built? Is there legislation or concerns about being able to build those? There's been a lot of negative sentiment towards data centers here in the U.S., for example, over the last several months. Will that transfer to other parts of the world? All of these kind of much bigger picture issues are now really the questions that people have. It's not Nvidia itself, because they just keep cranking out cash like crazy.
Yeah, and another thing that it's got to grapple with is its clients making their own chips. So, you have OpenAI's Jalapeno AI chip, Google, Amazon, Meta, Apple, all making their own chips. Plus, your existing chip competitors are doing pretty well as well, AMD, Broadcom. And then Nvidia is also talking about raising prices by more than 15% on artificial intelligence servers. So, can you talk to us about how significant this is going to be for Nvidia's demand and margins ahead? And I know you talked about it being able to, put out these fantastic numbers.
Yeah, well, and those are all excellent concerns. And in every other market, you would think, oh my gosh, these are horrendous challenges for any organization. How are they going to overcome that? And yet, in spite of that, despite that, we see Nvidia cranking out these numbers that are just incredible. And it says a couple of things. First of all, it says that the AI compute demand is so high that all comers are welcome. So whether it be competitors to Nvidia like the AMDs of the world, whether it be the customers like OpenAI and their new Jalapeno chip. But even today, you mentioned Amazon as a competitor, but they're a customer. They announced 2 million new GPUs that they were going to purchase from Nvidia into the future. And of course, the other thing that Nvidia has done that's made it so interesting is they're creating all these very complicated financial backstops and essentially funding some of their customers. Some are concerned it's circular economy, and there are questions about that. But not just that, they're actually helping, with power companies. They're helping trying to find land. They're providing the funds so that companies who want to build or get access to building new data centers can get access to the funds they need. They're basically saying, hey, our financials are so strong, we can provide that a financial backstop and insurance to all these companies, and that in turn will allow them to buy more of our stuff. So it's pretty amazing, really.
Yeah, and I'd like to, know what you feel or how you feel about, um, Nvidia partnering these Wall Street giants on $500 billion AI financing deal. So, the likes of Apollo, Blackstone, KKR, doing this instead of relying on customers' balance sheets and the traditional debt markets.
Well, I mean, what they're trying to do, again, is take advantage of this unique position they are in. They're the most valuable company in the world. They're just printing money quarter after quarter after quarter. And so their credit is incredibly good. And so they're basically saying, hey, why not take advantage of that and create these funds, because the companies they're going to sell to, frankly, don't have that high a quality credit. So it's hard for them to get the funds they need. These are big investments. If you're going to set up a data center, we're talking tens of billions of dollars many times. And so to ensure that those funds are available and to sort of grease the wheels for their commerce, that's what they're doing. Is they're saying, we have the funds, we can do this, we want to encourage this. And it's a very interesting way to think about doing business.
Yeah, and Bob, just a final one on, Nvidia not factoring in China and its outlook. This coming as we're also seeing reports that Beijing is allowing limited purchases of its chips by Chinese companies. I mean, how significant is this for Nvidia, which it also said that it's not going to be rolling out any special Chinese or China AI chips?
Yeah, I mean, it's a complicated story with China, as we know. And again, the fact that, even these huge numbers have zero China revenue, which is a huge potential market for them, is even more astounding. Because if they did have China, the numbers would be even higher, supply constraints notwithstanding. But the bottom line is, look, I think we will see some of these things start to trickle in. As we know, there's issues with the U.S. government placing restrictions. There are issues with the Chinese government placing restrictions. They want domestic semiconductors to be used for AI. And we've heard about some of these open model companies in China starting to use China-based silicon to create and train these models and build these models. So it's going to be interesting to watch. I don't think it'll ever be a huge number in NVIDIA's revenues, at least not for the next couple of years, but perhaps a few years down the road when things stabilize or things adjust, maybe we'll see a difference there.
All right, Bob, appreciate you joining us today. Bob O'Donnell there, President and Chief Analyst at TECHnalysis Research.